From Lagos, the nation's commercial capital, this is the News at 10. Live from Channels Television. Reporting tonight, Ijoma Unyato.
Hello and welcome. NCDC confirms 14 new COVID-19 cases in Nigeria as 7 more patients are discharged from the infectious disease hospital in Lagos, bringing the total number of discharged persons in the state to 39. Bauchi State Governor Bala Mohammed tests negative for COVID-19 as State Deputy Governor says number of confirmed cases of COVID-19 in the state is 4 and not 8. Senate President calls for better coordination of donations for tackling of the COVID-19 pandemic, advocates a central body other than the Presidential Task Force team to receive and manage the funds. And UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson moved out of intensive care unit at St Thomas's Hospital in London as global COVID-19 cases hits almost 1.5 million. Plus, we'll have business, sports, news from Abuja, the FCT, and later on international news from our London studios.
On business news tonight, oil prices fall sharply after surging by about 12% amid ongoing emergency meeting between OPEC and its allies on production cuts.
And on sports news tonight, with the outbreak of the coronavirus stopping major sporting events, the All England Lawn Tennis Club, organizers of Wimbledon Championship, says no financial worries.
From Abuja, 2,600 inmates across the country received presidential pardon. 5 former convicts, among them late politicians Professor Ambrose Ali and Chief Anthony Nahoro, also get posthumous pardon.
The Nigeria Center for Disease Control has confirmed 14 new cases of COVID-19 in Nigeria. Of the new cases, 13 are in Lagos and 1 in Delta State, bringing the total number of confirmed cases to 288 and the states affected in the country to 16, as well as the Federal Capital Territory. A breakdown of the cases in each of the states shows that Lagos now has 158 cases, FCT Abuja 54, Osun with 20, Edo State has 12 cases, Oyo 11 cases, Bauchi has 6 cases, Akwa Ibom and Kaduna 5 each, 4 in Ogun State, while Enugu, Ekiti, Kwara, Rivers and Delta each have 2 cases, with Ondo, Benue, Katsina states as well recording 1 case each. 51 persons have been discharged and 7 deaths recorded. And to some good news coming from Bauchi State, where the Governor Bala Mohammed tested negative for COVID-19. The Governor announced this on his Twitter handle that a second test for the disease returned negative. Mr. Mohammed was the first governor in the country and the first person in Bauchi State to test positive for COVID-19. However, the state government is questioning some COVID-19 test results owing to discrepancies in the personal details of some of the patients whose samples were sent to Abuja for testing. The chairman of the state's COVID-19 task force, Baba Tella, admits that recent results show inconsistencies in the age, gender, and addresses of some persons.
We had 3 index cases, which are all under management. And then we sent some samples to them. I think that was on the 7th or so. I can't remember the date, but that was 2nd. On 2nd, we sent another sample of 3 people to them. Now, when they sent the results of those samples to us, there was some contention because the addresses are not correct. They give us addresses of people living in Abuja, and the gender is also mixed up. So they said, okay, bring it back to us, we'll retest it again. We'll retest these 3 results again for you. But meanwhile, they have already added those 3 onto the 3 that we have, saying that we have 6. So when we took back the 3 to them, we also took back for re-evaluation the results of the first 3 indexes, and then the results of 2 others, 2 new cases, making 8 cases, 8 samples. The 2 new cases came back negative. We don't have any new case. And out of the first and second set that we sent them, 2 tested negative from those ones too. So you see, we have 4 index cases then. And out of those 4 index cases, 2 tested positive again. The problem is from us and from them at the same time. When the samples were sent to them, which they didn't tell us before until now, when you are sending a sample for retesting or re-evaluation or follow-up, you have to put the hospital number and the hospital details of that sample of the person that is already under treatment. They didn't tell us that one until today. So we have been sending those samples of those people under management to them without the details of the hospital admission and the rest of them. So they treat them as new cases. As far as we are concerned, we have so far 4 cases.
Meanwhile, following the outcry from Bauchi state government, the NCDC has confirmed that indeed 2 new cases reported for Bauchi state yesterday were actually repeat tests, previously confirmed cases. The NCDC on its Twitter handle confirms the error in its earlier figures and offers its apologies. The agency says the correction follows a further review and that it remains committed to ensuring transparent and accurate reporting of test results. However, the figure falls short of the 4 cases claimed by the Bauchi state government repeat tests as being given in error. Now, here in Lagos State, 7 more COVID-19 patients have been discharged from the isolation center in Yaba. Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu disclosed this on his verified Twitter handle, where he confirmed that the discharged patients, 6 males and 1 female, have all tested negative for the virus twice. This brings the number of discharged patients in Lagos to 39. The state's Commissioner for Health, Professor Akin Abayomi, also explained that the government is focusing on intercepting cross-border incursions of Nigerians returning from neighboring West African countries. He was speaking at the media briefing on the state government's efforts at managing the pandemic.
You may have heard that there are frequent excursions across the Nigeria Republic of Benin border. We have been able to intercept 3 such incursions, and right now, as I speak, we have been able to meet and take into our care 67 Nigerians that have come from Côte d'Ivoire, and we've put them in one of our quarantine facilities in Badagry, and we're just about to receive another 27. The idea behind this is that we'll keep them for 14 days isolation. We will test them, and if they're positive, they'll move to one of our isolation wards, and if they're negative, we'll allow them to continue on their way to Osun State, which is where they originate from. The first batch of such that crossed the Nigerian border, we discovered that about 10% of them were positive for coronavirus. So this movement of people is an area that we are watching very closely to make sure that it does not increase our numbers of imported cases. It is important that we practice evidence-based medicine and that these treatment protocols are indeed useful in our Lagosian populations. We will also be testing the accuracy of these rapid tests because many of them have very low level of accuracy, and the consequences of using inaccurate tests could be quite serious.
The Senate President, Ahmed Lawan, says there's a lack of coordination in the management of donations from corporate organizations to address the COVID-19 pandemic. And this comes as the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Boss Mustafa, frowned on the state of Nigeria's health sector. Both men stated their positions at a meeting between the leadership of the National Assembly and the COVID-19 Presidential Task Force. Our correspondent Linda Akigbe reports.
The priority and placement that has been given in this program.
For more than 5 hours, the leadership of the National Assembly took members of the COVID-19 Presidential Task Force up on the management of the pandemic. Senate President Ahmed Lawan sets the tone for the interface, expressing concern over the management of donations pouring in from the private sector to address the pandemic. The Secretary to the Government of the Federation paints a bleak picture of the country's health sector.
We hear donations made by various organizations, corporate bodies, and so on and so forth. But it is my candid opinion that there is no coordination. Whatever monies have been raised by the corporate bodies, the banks, NNPC, and maybe the IOCs, should be in one central account. Should be in one central account. Where PTF has requests, such requests, of course, will also pass through us. We look at the requests and the funds based on endorsement. The funds can be utilized.
I can tell you for sure, I never knew that our entire healthcare infrastructure was in the state in which it is until I was appointed to do this work.
The Speaker of the House of Representatives is curious about the hazard allowance for frontline medical personnel handling COVID-19 cases.
Are they being paid a hazard allowance for the job that they are doing?
I am not aware of it.
You're not aware?
It's a standard job they do every day.
It's a standard job?
Yes, a standard job.
I thought you said coronavirus was novel. How is it now a standard job that they're doing?
Because screening is what you do every day.
They don't screen for coronavirus every day. They've never done it. They've never done it. This is the most infectious disease in the world.
They're screening for temperature. That's what they're
doing.
So
the answer to my question is that they're not being paid a hazard allowance.
No, the answer you're right on.
That you don't know.
Is that I am not aware.
But you should be aware. It's not enough to say that you don't know, quite honestly. You dropped the ball there.
Every aspect of the welfare of our doctors, our nurses, and people who will be in the points of contact with likely infected persons would all be covered in this comprehensive package that is being prepared.
The Health Minister goes on to give an overview of the isolation centers in the country.
We have layers of isolation centers, fitting for high-ranking government officials, for civil servants, for businessmen, for ordinary Nigerians. All layers are there. So but nobody needs to fear for their comfort if they have to go into a 14-day isolation.
Going forward, the COVID-19 Presidential Task Force wants the National Assembly to develop a legislative framework to prepare for any future pandemic, as well as develop a plan to reform the country's healthcare system. Linda Akigbe, Channels Television News.
In part 2, after break, we continue our analysis of the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic in Nigeria. Today, we'll focus on the oil and gas sector, and we'll have the Group Managing Director of NAPIMS, Mr. Bala Wunti, to examine this. That's in a moment. Just stay with us.